it's a big bet. It's hard to me to think from like a product perspective to let something go that you already have for this dream of something that sounds almost like the thing you already had, but just masser marketer. Hey, what's up? My name is Chris and welcome to Coding in Public. I don't usually do these kinds of reaction videos, but I've been a longtime ARC user and they just posted this letter to members in 2025. So I wanted to go over that and kind of give you my raw thoughts. All right, like I said, this is not something I typically do. I did it like a couple weeks ago with an article and thought I would do it again today. Let me know if you like this kind of content. This is me just kind of reading stuff to you and talking about it. So if you're interested in something more like that, instead of just the coding tutorials, let me know. All right, so this is from Josh. I'm presuming the browser company CEO. And he starts with, Dear ARC members, you're probably wondering what happened. One day we were all in on ARC and then seemingly out of nowhere, we started building something new. That's kind of true, but you also saw like with all the video work they were doing, like they were talking all about it, but they were kind of exploring a bunch of things. So I think for like the last 6-8 months, they seemed kind of distracted before they made the announcement about like kind of like pivoting. Here he says, from the outside, the pivot might have looked abrupt. Well, I just said I didn't think it did really. ARC had momentum, people loved it, but inside the decision was slower and more deliberate. So they've got some questions they're going to go over, and I'm guessing this is what they've gotten from people, what we got wrong, why we built ARC, why ARC fell short, why we didn't integrate DIA into ARC. All right, so let's kind of walk through these. What we got wrong. To start differently, I'll just try to kind of quickly read this. I won't read every word here. I've read it through one time real briefly before recording today. First of all, we would have stopped working on ARC a year earlier. That's interesting to me because I feel like it took until about that time for people to adapt it, but they had the numbers evidently, but were in denial. Secondly, they would have embraced AI fully. I think that's hard because like in the zeitgeist of like the time, people were kind of like half in and out. And because most of their clients were actually developers, well, at least the people I saw publicly using it were developers. Maybe they have better data on that. Like there was a lot of skepticism in the community about AI being integrated into everything. Like it was a lot of eye rolling and there weren't like that many super useful things yet and hadn't really caught on in the general populace either. So like I get that they wish they would have, but I don't know that that could have been avoided kind of with the current customer base they had, because I think it would have alienated people had they jumped too much into it. And he mentioned some of this embarrassment too, if I remember right. Yeah, the buzzwords, the self-importance, all that kind of stuff. So that's what they want to bring to the heart of ARC. And it's the demo of a prototype we called ARC Explorer, which is basically what DIA became or is now. Third, he would have communicated differently. Yeah. He's made people mad. I mean, Josh seems like a super genuine guy. I don't know if that's just how he comes across. That's definitely like he is the brand of ARC in many ways. And so I think people really trusted him because of how transparent and open he was. And then to like flip the switch on people, especially people who had been such ardent evangelists for it. Like you don't hear people like super hyping up something, but they super hyped up ARC. And a lot of it was because I think Josh was so transparent and open and you felt like you were a part of something new and like you felt included in a lot of it. And part of that was their video work. And obviously they invested a ton in that whole area. But I think that is interesting to me that like here he's saying it pains me that he communicated the way he did. Yeah, he has this quote, "The truth will set you free," and it served him well and he wished he would have done it more. I think the hard thing is like, it was actually the fact that he was so transparent that made it hurt so much when suddenly they kind of pivoted. Now I'm still using ARC personally. I don't use it in my videos just because not everyone does. And I don't want to answer questions about my tech stack constantly. So I just use Chrome in my videos, but mostly personally, I just use ARC. So I think that one is interesting because it's kind of like a catch-22. It's the thing that helped people like ARC. And it's also the thing that really hurt them in the end and why people, I think, turned so like vehemently against him. Why we built ARC. It's interesting to me when I heard the pitches for DIA, like it just sounded like ARC again. Like, stop me if you've heard this before, like a brand new browser. People have never done something like this before. It's going to be the new computer, like all the same kind of pitch things. But in order to answer your real questions, why we pivoted to DIA, whether we can open source ARC and more, I need to share a bit of background from the past. So at its core, it's that the browser is the most important software in your life. Everyone's moving to the browser. Even back then, I felt like the dominant operating system in 2019 on desktop wasn't Windows or Mac OS anymore. It was the browser, and things have been moving that way for some time, especially with the rise of a lot of SaaS apps. Like everything is browser first. So that's why they made ARC. They wanted to make that feel like your home on the internet. They wanted you to feel like this is mine, this is my space. And Again, once you've created something that personal, to pivot away from it is personal to people. But it increasingly became clear that Arc was falling short of that aspiration. So where it fell short. After a couple of years of building and shipping Arc, we started running into something we called the novelty tax problem. A lot of people loved Arc. If you're here, you might just be one of them. You benefited from the consistent organic growth since day one. So D1 retention was strong. Those who stuck after a few days were fanatics. That's true, but our metrics were more like a highly specialized professional tool, like a video editor, and not like a mass market consumer product. This, I think, is actually what like rubs me the wrong way, and why I think a lot of people turned on them when they kind of jumped ship on Arc. Like there's these two competing visions. One is like the super transparent, honest, like we're here to serve you. We want to help individuals. And the other is this very clear, like we want to be universally used. We want to be mass market, huge, big box, like, and those things don't really go together. Like on the one, you're talking to an individual. On the other, it's just numbers. And I think that's some of the confusion and frustration with Arc, and why I think it will be difficult to maintain this same like openness and transparency and also go for that mass market thing, because people won't push something that they feel is just a mass market product. They will push something that they feel is super personal and helpful, like at least in my experience. On top of that, Arc lacked cohesion, both in its core features and its values. This was super interesting. What people said, used, loved, valued differs from the average tweet or Reddit comment assumes. Only 5.52%. This is crazy. Used more than one space regularly. That's like the whole reason I use it. I think I have 8 spaces and multiple profiles within that grouping to keep me logged into different services. That's like the whole point of Arc for me. It's interesting that 5% is all we've got. 4.17, use live folders. Again, that's crazy for me. Calendar, preview, and hover. Yeah, I mean, I do use that. So I guess I'm also in that number. So maybe I'm just like the ideal cross section of everybody here. Switching browsers is a big task. Let's see. By contrast, core features in Dia, like chatting with tabs and personalized features, are used by 40 and 37%. Those numbers are hard to argue with. These are the details. These are things you can toil over, measure, sculpt, remove. The part that was hard to admit is that Arc, even Arc Search, were too incremental. They were meaningful, but not at the scale of improvements that we aspire to. And again, this is like the whole, like we want to be the biggest thing ever, but also we want to talk to you personally and be really intimate and, help individuals. Or that could break out as a mass market product. If we were serious about our original mission, we needed technological unlock to build something truly new. So in 2023, we started seeing it happen across categories. ChatGPT, Perplexity, Google, Cursor, all these kind of were being reshaped by AI. This was the moment we were waiting for, and like the general populace was moving this way. So it seemed like Dia felt like a no-brainer. So when people ask how venture capital influenced us or why we didn't charge for Arc and run our profitable business, they get it, but it misses the forest for the trees. If the goal is to build a small, profitable company, small I think should be triple underscored here, with a great team and loyal customers, we wouldn't have chosen to try to build the successor to the web browser, the most ubiquitous piece of software there is. The point of this was always bigger for us, to build good, cared-for software that could have an impact at people at real scale. Like all these phrases of scale and mass market and all this, like clearly that is the driving vision, and the whole personal individual stuff like is definitely second place. And I think that's fine, like just now that that's up front, and I think it has been from the beginning, but Josh's like personalness to a lot of this and the way that they did their videos, and like it was just a very personal company. Like I think that's what cut across this other mission, and clearly this is the one that wins, and this is the big one. They wouldn't have raised all that venture capital and all that kind of stuff if it was just going to be this personal thing, but they probably would have never done it in the first place. So, and that's essentially what he's saying. So why didn't they build Dia into Arc? So the way they approached Dia is an opportunity to fix what got wrong with Arc. Simplicity over novelty. It needs to be simpler to work with. And it is true that there's a learning curve with Arc, even just like visually, that there's this left-hand sidebar and all that. And I haven't seen Dia, so it may have the exact same thing, but speed isn't a trade-off. And this is something I think genuinely like makes a lot of sense why they moved to something else. Arc just continually like struggled with speed. And I think it's because they didn't build it with that in mind as like a first principle. So they were always kind of playing catch up. To me, it's worked well. I had an old computer where it wasn't working anymore, and it wasn't like the computer's fault. It just, something happened, and the browser just really struggled. I deleted it, reinstalled it, and everything was fine. So who knows? Maybe that's user error, but it does seem like they were always chasing speed. but it wasn't like a core feature of what Arc was, where it seems like that's what they're going for. And that I get as, kind of wanting to start over, although that's just like technical debt too. So I don't know. Third, security is at the forefront, especially in this whole AI movement. I think it is important to have somebody caring about security. Google's not going to do that. And they seem to have been rolling out a lot of stuff like this in their browsers just in the last week. So I do think this can be like their kind of Apple moment. I think people don't really trust Apple that much, but Apple really tries to make this as like a key selling point. I mean, it's nice because they're not selling ads as their main thing. And hopefully, if they can find a way to fund this outside of venture capital, then you could trust them in the same kind of way. But I think until they have a recurring source of revenue that makes sense and is sustainable, then I think it will be hard for people to take the security thing face value. All right, so these things all need to be part of the product's foundation, not afterthoughts. Okay, and that's fair, I think. Will we open source Arc? We started exploring what would be next. It's true, we're not actively developing the core product experience like we used to. Naturally, people have asked, will we open source it? Will we sell it? It's complicated. It is not just a fork. It's built on top of the Arc development kit. And so that way, like ex-iOS engineers can prototype native browser UI quickly without having to touch C++. So it seems like they've put enough magic sauce on this that it would be hard to like pull apart. I think this happens a lot, especially when companies are moving very fast, which you mentioned earlier, that like when you're building so fast, it's very difficult to also build sustainably for the future because it's all about just pushing out stuff as quickly as possible. And in some sense, like if they hadn't done that, I probably would have never heard about Arc. But once it's so integrated, then like now that they built a lot of DIA on top of the same ADK as well, it's going to be very hard for them to extract that out from Arc. And it also doesn't make sense from a business standpoint. So it would literally just be for their fans. And it sounds like Josh's heart would be to like, yeah, I want to give this as a gift, but like, I don't think that will ever make economical sense. So I would seriously doubt that's going to happen because it's also the foundation of DIA. So like they said, if they can open source it without stealing from their core company's value, then they'll do it. But we're not there yet. So probably not going to happen. In the meantime, they are not trying to shut down Arc. That's encouraging for me who still uses it. We know you rely on it. You use it. Many of our friends and family do too. We still love it. We spent years of our life on it. Again, like this is the whole personal thing. They're talking to you as an individual, but like the business is speaking and clearly that's what they care about. And I think that's going to be a very difficult road to walk. And I think what will probably happen is they'll slowly just lose people on Arc as it starts to slow down on their machines or doesn't keep up with new features and that kind of thing. And eventually they'll have to kill it. Like it won't make any sense to keep it open anymore. And especially if they're running it through, especially if they've got it so integrated that they can't open source it, like it's going to have to be shut down at some point, which I think is why people, what's that new one by Firefox where they've kind of ported a lot of the Arc features over. That's why people are doing that because they recognize it's not going to happen. And it probably wouldn't make financial sense for them either. Building DIA, I want to end by being frank with you. DIA is not really a reaction to Arc. No, imagine writing an essay justifying why you're moving on from your candle business at the dawn of the electric light. That's a intense metaphor. Electric intelligence is here, and it would be naive of us to pretend it doesn't fundamentally change the type of product we need to build. He mentions here we're getting out of the candle business, and you should too. And again, like it's bold, it's a big bet, but like there's a reason that we have phrases like a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. Like once you have something, like hold on to it. And I think that's why, like I would personally struggle with Arc if I was there, having invested all this, having like the one thing you always want, which is individuals promoting your product. That could be a really core, vital business, and letting that go for this reach in the future. So they are making browsers, but an AI browser is going to be different from web browser. Web pages won't be the primary interface anymore. They mention AI chat interfaces and agents, LLMs. So they're trying to build it kind of in this future way of thinking, which I understand, like Cursor and Claude and a lot of these things are doing that too, but they're kind of using old paradigms and adding this on. So we'll see if this works, but the web isn't going anywhere, at least not anytime soon. Figma and the New York Times aren't becoming less important. Definitely for Figma. I'm not sure about the New York Times. Your boss isn't ditching your team's SAS tools. So like, here's the thing about becoming like the global choice. The reason Chrome is the global choice is basically because of Android and because of, at least in my experience, and then because of web developers. Like their investment early on in a lot of the web development tooling Like, to me at least, maybe that's anecdotally totally wrong. But my gut says that like they're kind of the default in the Android space. So people tend to use them already. And then a lot of the stuff that they've done in enterprise, like with schools and stuff too, I think has played a factor, like Chromebooks and that kind of thing. It's interesting to me that like to see how things like Edge come back into the game, especially with their recent focus in the last several years on dev tooling and the dev console and that kind of thing. But I think it's going to be hard for them as like a non-hardware company to enter into the hardware game. Most people are always going to use the defaults. That's why Safari is used by most people who use Macs. That's why Chrome and Edge are used by people who use Windows and Chromebooks and stuff like that. So to be replaced by that, you first have to interact with people who see the actual need for it. And I struggle with that on a mass market level, like with normal people. And then here they're talking about companies. Well, companies are like, you might be able to win some companies over, but again, he just said they're not ditching these things. So I don't know how those two big segments, the mass market general populace and like companies, if those two are kind of out of the picture personally, I think those are going to be very hard markets to capture. What's left? Well, it's the hobbyists. It's those who are web developers, those who like to work with their systems and like change stuff around and install special apps. And that's basically what they had in Arc. So we'll see if they can grow into those other markets. I think it's just going to be very difficult to do that. Who knows? Maybe they feel like through social media and stuff like that, they can start to gain some of that influence. New interfaces start from familiar ones. This is probably one of the things that they got wrong with Arc, but it's also why Arc took off, is that they chose new interfaces, but it makes it hard for mass market. And that's what they're struggling with here. How we all use computers is changing much faster due to AI than most people acknowledge, yet at the same time, we're much farther from completely abandoning our old ways than AI insiders give credit for. Cursor proved this old thesis in the coding space. The breakthrough AI app of the year was an old IDE designed to be AI native. OpenAI confirmed this theory when they bought Windsurf, which I think that could have more to do with data from Windsurf, but we'll see, despite having codecs working quietly in the background. So this is why they're building Dia. It's an opportunity to chase the product of our original ambition, a true successor to the browser, maybe even the internet computer we've all been building towards. To be clear, we might fail. I like the honesty. We might partially succeed and not win. That's probably more likely. We still assume we don't. I don't know what this links to, but looks like they have some values. That's good. We're confident about this 5 years from now. The most AI interfaces on desktop will replace the default browsers of yesteryear. Like today, there will be a few of them, Chrome, Edge, Safari, but the point is this: the next Chrome is being built right now, whether it's Dia or not. Browser companies assembled is a team that assembled for the chance, however slim, to build something that rewired how we use our computers. And this is like that aspirational thing that, like, I like that feel, but it's clear like what they really want is mass market, like big market. That's what matters the most. It's not so much how we rewire our computers. It's like, can we capture the market? Which I think they're saying one is going to accomplish the other, but anyhow, Dia may not be your style, may not land right away, but this is still us being ourselves, building the kind of thing we want to use, fully aware that we might be wrong. We're doing it anyway because we think the intent matters, and we think that's what's got us this far. So I don't know. I think my overall thoughts are like, I will probably still keep using Arc privately just because it's like he mentioned, it's hard to move from browsers. Like the amount of stuff I would have to do to move out of Arc would be frustrating to me. So they'd have to slow down in such a significant way that it would not be worth it for me to stay with them anymore. Currently, it's still working for me just fine. I don't care if they add another feature. I just want it to be stable. And as long as they keep it stable, I'll keep using it. I think eventually I will be forced away from it. I would love to move to the Firefox version. I forget what it's called, but then I have to use Firefox, and I don't know that I want to do that either. So since it's just like such a small subset of the market, it just never seems to get the kind of feature set that I would want, especially with CSS and stuff like that. Although maybe it would help me build better websites because I could actually inspect on Firefox like I should every time. So I appreciate the honesty. Like, I think overall it's a big bet. It's hard to me to think from like a product perspective to let something go that you already have for this dream of something that sounds almost like the thing you already had, but just masser marketer. And I think that's the hard thing for me. We'll see if it happens. I wish Josh and everyone at Browser Company the best of luck, but I will keep using Arc until they shut it down. All right, thanks. I'll catch you in the next one. Happy coding.